Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing my shop, my stash rotation, in which I take all the products in my everyday makeup drawer and rotate them out and pick things new. But before we pick new things, I go through all the things that I've had in my everyday makeup drawer up until this point and give you my thoughts around a lot of them. Some of them have been in my collection for a while. Some of them were brought in brand new and fresh. So I hope that sounds like something you're interested in, and if it is, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I am a lover of all things high-end colorful beauty and self-care. I also work as a field leader for Ulta Beauty, so I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education. Ultimately, though, I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like to talk about makeup, and if you also like to talk about makeup, I'm sure that you have found the right place. So I hope that you keep on watching. I hope that you subscribe before you go. And with that said, let's roll into this Shop My Stash everyday makeup drawer rotation. All right, so I have pulled everything out of my everyday makeup drawer, and what we do is we fill it up and we replace what is in the drawer right here, and I use that for a period of time. I've been using these for, I think, about 6 weeks at this point, so I think it's time, and it is now August, so we in Western Washington are now starting to hit our hottest month, and then it drops right down into some cooler weather for fall, and I think it's approximately the appropriate time frame to really think about changing things out. I want to start with the lip category. I did use every single one of these lip products, which is shocking to me because I hardly ever do, but I did pull in 3 different lip liners into this, and I've got to say, like, I love all 3 of these lip liners. This one is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk 2 medium, and it is a little bit deeper than the regular Pillow Talk color is, and I have to be honest, I really quite like it. It isn't what's on my lips today, but you would think probably any of these could have been on my lips today. I also have the Natasha Denona in Natasha that I picked up when she released her My Dream collection. This one I feel like is a little bit more creamy than the Charlotte Tilbury one is. I do think it's got really generous lasting power, but I don't think it lasts as long as the Charlotte Tilbury one does. And then this one is a new to me formula. This is the Makeup Forever Artist Color Pencil, and this one was in the shade Wherever Walnut. I bought this one because of Lauren from Lauren May Beauty, and it is a really nice formulation. It does last a pretty lengthy amount of time. I do think that you can tell where my sweet spot of like lip liner lands because they're all 3 very, very similar, but I also think that they're all 3 very, very different and would create a really good like contoured lip look with just wearing these 3 things on my lips from a lip liner perspective. And for those of you who are new around here, I wear lip liner all over my lip and then tend to go over the top of it with a gloss. That is my perfect lip. It's just the easiest for me, and my lips are not necessarily something that I 100% love about my appearance, so I like to draw as little attention to them as possible. I did wear those a lot with this gloss over the top. This is the Zoeva. I think it's a Zoeva Melody lip gloss in Radiant Flight. It is just a really beautiful, like kind of milky pink sparkly gloss. Wore it over the top of these an awful lot. It is what is on my lips today over the top of a different lip combination, but I love this. I did think that it was probably bad when I pulled it in here, but it still smells really good, doesn't taste awful, and I'm still able to wear it without feeling like I'm tasting kind of that almost gasoline scent out of a lip gloss that has gone bad. I also pulled in these 2, and these are, I think, considered glossy lips. They are the Hourglass Phantom Volumizing Glossy Balms, and while I did like them, I didn't 100% love them. I feel like the gloss in them is really kind of thick, and I like a moisturizing but more thin like gloss formula. I felt like these ones you needed very, very little, and if you put much more than very, very little, you were going to regret your life decisions because they just kind of sit on top of your lips versus like fading into your lips, or not fading into your lips, but becoming one with your lips, right? And therefore could cause like the wear down into the corners of your mouth and or like spit strindles almost. They don't dry down. They're a glossy formula. They're nice. They're also one of those like contraptions that you roll this up and you have to use what's rolled up or lose the product, right? Because they don't retract back down. And I think that that's part of the problem with them. Much like the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips or whatever they're called. I do like these better, I think, than the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips, but I didn't 100% love wearing these. They're comfortable. They just tend to, I feel like, sit on top of the lips versus sinking in and actually moisturizing your lips. It says that they are a all-in-one lip gloss balm that nourishes, hydrates, and plumps lips while delivering full-bodied color and a dewy high shine finish. I do think that they have a dewy high shine finish at the detriment of what it looks like on your lips, if I'm honest with you. I don't feel like they're super volumizing. I feel like they also leave a slight bit of pigment, but not a lot of pigment. I do think that if you had like maybe one shade of it, you would be fine. I also think that they're not plumping. Like when you see volumizing, you see that they plump. They don't like sting at all and have very little of that like mintiness effect that a lot of volumizing lip products do. Brought in this one as well as a like glossy lip product. What I do like about this one is able to retract down. These are called the NARS Afterglow Lip Balms, and I think that these ones have much more pigment and really great shine to them. I think that they last a lot longer than the Hourglass ones always. I mean, they're not nearly as glossy. They are shiny, but not nearly as glossy. Therefore, they don't kind of feel like they're just sitting on top of the lips. And I liked this one so much better. It was a lot more comfortable is in terms of wear, and wear off was also a lot more appealing than that of the Hourglass one. So I did have a really good time with this one. Then I brought in some like liquidy lipsticks as well. I'm going to declutter this. This is the Nude Sticks Magnetic Lip Plush Paint. And this is in the shade Bahama Mama, which is a really pretty shade. Like, honestly, right up my alley as far as shades that I like. And it honestly was a pretty comfortable wear as well. But it smells so bad. It smells so bad. And I could not, I couldn't continue to wear it on my lips. I didn't want it on my face as far as the blush goes. And honestly, it kind of wore away on my face and picked up other product underneath it on my face. So I am going to declutter that one. These two, I was actually quite surprised by them. These are the Kylie liquid lipsticks. The darker one is in the shade Ulta Beauty. It was given to us in gratis at an FLC. Not last year, but the year before, honestly, but this is the first time I've opened it. And then this one is in the shade Coco K. And I really loved putting the Ulta Beauty one on the outside of my lips and the Coco K one on the inside of my lips, and then putting a liquid or a lip gloss over the top of them to kind of merge them together. So beautiful. What a comfortable liquid lip this really was. I don't love the wear down of them. Like, they don't last very long, honestly, and as they start to wear away, it's not super appealing. But I did like the wear time of them. As long as it was like for like a dinner date or something like that, I think it would be fine, but not like an all day wear. But they were super comfortable to wear while I did have them in rotation, and I'll be holding on to them, which is kind of odd because I don't really 100% love liquid lipsticks, but I feel the same way about this one. This is the Stila Stay All Day liquid lipstick in the shade Patina. And this is just a mini. I got it in gratis at FLC at some point. I think last year's FLC. And I love this shade. It is beautiful. And I do think that this one is honestly my perfect shade. This one leans a little bit peachier than I really like on my lips, and this one is like kind of that middle of the lips only kind of shade, but this one I could see wearing as an everyday wear. It was super beautiful, and I feel like the wear down of this product was also not awful. And then this is the ABH Lip Velvet in the shade Kiss. And what I really, really love about this, number one, is the packaging is stunning. It is truly beautiful. But also, this is more like Onsai lip glaze almost. So it's kind of matte, but it sticks around for a really long time like a liquid lipstick. But the dry down doesn't feel horrible, and it gives like really that blurred lip effect, which is so popular, you know, right now. I feel like this one does it perfectly because it's not quite, it's matte, but it's not so matte that it's drying out your lips, and you can like blur the edges of it and it looks like barely there lipstick, and it sticks around for a lot longer time frame than you would expect it to stick around. And I don't know if that's because it's matte or no, for something that doesn't 100% dry down. I don't know. It just feels really good. And the name of it, Lip Velvet, is really pretty perfect. I was terrified to try this, if I'm honest with you, because ABH lip products have never been my favorite. They're always very drying to my lips. I do like a couple of their lipsticks that I do have in my collection. But like from a liquid lip perspective, they've never been amazing. All of those lip products, except for this one, will continue to stay in my collection because I really did have a good time with them. And we will now move on to complexion. I only brought in 3 foundations. So I did bring in this. This is the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Serum Skin Tint, and I have mine in the shade 4. And ultimately, the first time I tried this, I hated it. I thought it sat on my skin very, very strangely. I noticed it peeled up quite a bit, and I think that it was because of what I was wearing underneath it, honestly. Like I had, I think, this primer underneath it, and it didn't love it. So wearing it under like this primer or no primer, to be honest, it sits on my skin really pretty beautifully, and I really like it. I think it looks better when it's applied with your fingers than it does when it's applied with a brush or with a sponge. And I did get into the habit of also putting it on underneath some of my other foundations, and I kind of dig it as a primer as well. I do think that it does what it says it's going to do in the fact that it hydrates, smooths, and kind of corrects your skin and creates a really nice canvas for you to put other makeup on top of. And I also think that it was a perfect skin tint for me to use as a one and done, because I'm not like a foundation lover. I don't love putting all kinds of foundation on my skin. I feel like this was a beautiful skin tint that would perfect my skin enough that it felt like I was having a great makeup day when I maybe wasn't even wearing makeup at all. Now, I'm not sure if I love these or not. I think I need a little bit more time with them, and I think honestly, I just maybe put them into rotation at the wrong time of year for them. Not because I think that they are not good. I think that you guys can tell just by how much has been used of them. I did use them quite significantly, but I did end up getting shades 4 and shades 6, which is the shade I think I should be getting also in the eavesdrops, because that's the shade that I really do think I am. I think that it matches perfectly. What I loved about having the 2 different shades is I was able to also like brighten up like the center of my face with like this shade without having to go into a different like concealer or whatnot. I do love these for a couple of reasons, but I also don't love them for a couple of reasons. I love them because I feel like they glide on for a stick foundation and are effortless to blend, really. And because I feel like, honestly, they're emollient, so like kind of hydrating to the skin. I feel like they make my skin look real good, right? I don't like them because I feel like they're just a little bit heavy in terms of the way that I love makeup. And I get it, they're a foundation stick, but I was either putting them on too heavily or they are just too heavy. And in my experience with them over the last 6 weeks, I had used them by putting them straight onto my face. I had also like put a brush to them and then did it that way. What I didn't do is put it onto the back of my hand and dab my blender into it and then try it that way. So maybe I'll try it that way in the future, because I do think that they felt heavy. Not that they looked heavy, but they felt heavy on my skin. And that is part of the reason why I like skin tints and not really am a foundation person, is because I don't like the feel of the heaviness on my skin. I'm going to give those some more time before I make a final thought on them. As you know, when I rolled all 3 of these in, I had never used them before. So a lot of my everyday makeup rotation this last time was a bunch of stuff that I had never used before. I am definitely interested in getting a little more thought process on them, but honestly, it didn't occur to me to put them onto my hand and dab them onto a sponge until like recently. And then it's been rather warm here, so I haven't tried to use them. And I've been trying honestly to get some other products out of my collection through Project Pan, so I've been really honing in on those foundations versus the ones that were in my everyday makeup rotation. As far as correctors go, or concealers, I just brought in these 2 things. So this is the MAC Studio Fix Conceal and Correct palette in pretty much their neutral shades. So I have 2 neutral cool, 2 neutral warm, and then the yellow and the peach down here at the bottom. So we have the neutral cool and the neutral warm shades. And I really do like this. I really have enjoyed having it in my collection, and I will continue to utilize it. It is a really great little corrector palette. I love taking it on the road with me because it has everything I need in one shot. I did use it as well as this most of the time in my eye looks. I feel like this right now is really too light for me, and when I put this on my under eyes, it's very stark. One thing that I would say about this as well, this is the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. One thing that I would say about this as well is I feel like if you use way too much of this, it looks horrible on your under eyes. So one thing that I have been doing is just popping it onto my hand and using a brush or a blender sponge, mostly a brush, to like just tap it into my under eye area and then use my finger to warm it up and tap it out and kind of blend it into the rest of my skin. But it is what I'm wearing today in conjunction with one that is in my Project Pan, because this one is far too dark for me and this one right now currently is far too light. So I've been mixing them together, and I feel like the formulations of them both go together really quite well, because this is, while I do feel like if you use too much, it looks really dry on your under eyes, this is such a hydrating formula for your under eyes. It really does its due diligence of not finding itself into the fine lines and wrinkles that you get in your under eyes, or like any crepiness that I have in that area, because I am old AF. So I really do like it, but I think I like it in spurts. Like if you use too much of it, it's not great. I don't 100% love it though, like every single YouTuber does. I do think that you have to work with it very carefully and precisely in order to get it to work. These were the primers I brought in, and I think that you can see, like, I had a real good time with this primer. It was brand new when I rolled it in, and now it is, there's a ton of it that was used. This is the Ola Hendrickson Banana Bright Face Primer. It says vitamin C and banana powder inspired ingredients. And I feel like it has a little bit of a tint to it. So it's got like this orangey tint to it that I feel like just kind of corrects the skin underneath and creates a really nice like color corrected canvas for you to put your makeup over the top of. I also feel like my skin looked so good with this as a primer. And with this as a primer and this, it did not work out. It did not work out. But with this as a primer and just about any other foundation in my collection, I feel like this looks beautiful. I'm wearing it today underneath the foundation that I have on today, and I really like it. I do think that it would not take me very long to get through this primer though, since it's been in for 6 weeks and it's about halfway gone at this point. I had a good time with it. It was a really great primer. This one, also a really great primer. This is the Natasha Denona Hygen Energizing and Hydrating Primer Serum, and I did feel like it was energizing and hydrating, and I also feel like just that dropper's worth of product is plenty enough to do your whole face, to prime your whole face, and it just gives your skin such a beautiful, like, glow to it without looking greasy, without looking and feeling balmy. It's just so beautiful, and I used so dang much of it. It's like down to here already. Love it. These are the two powders that I brought in. So I brought in the By Terry Hydra Care Setting Powder, and I absolutely love this powder. It still is a powder that I find value in my collection, whereas I am a person who hardly uses powder. I do think that that is a great powder. This one, this is the Bare Minerals Original Mineral Veil. It is in the shade Translucent, but this is not translucent. This is not a translucent powder. This does give quite a bit of white cast on your skin, and I just feel like it shouldn't, right? I've had Bare Minerals powders in the past that don't do that. So I don't love this on my under eyes because then it is a more like isolated place for it to be. I do love it on my face, but I also feel like it lightens everything that I've got going on my face and kind of makes me look like a ghost. So I've got to figure out the best way of applying this and making it look normal on my skin, because right now it either brightens up my under eyes to the point where, I mean, it's beautiful. You can see exactly where the powder was placed. It's just too white and doesn't really appear as translucent. Now this is also white, maybe even whiter than this one, but it doesn't leave a white cast in the way this one does. I did have this before in the loose powder, and I distinctly remember the loose version of this mineral veil being pink to some extent, or maybe peachy, and this is flat out white. So I don't 100% love this powder. Again, because you can see it. Let me know if I'm crazy. Can you guys see it? And if you have this powder, what is the perfect way of applying it to not give yourself white cast? I would be interested to hear from you guys, because I'm going to keep it, but I can see it being potentially decluttered in my collection. I did pull in just a handful of powder bronzers, and then I also have some cream ones. One of these powder bronzers I'm a little bit scared for because I do think it possibly break again. It is a powder bronzer that my daughter gave me that shattered, that I repressed, and I just don't know that I did a fantastic job of repressing it, because as I'm looking in the little container that it was sitting in, like, I can see bronzer powder everywhere. This is an Ofra bronzer. This is in the shade South Beach, and it looks really, really super dark, but it's actually a really nice shade for me and my complexion, especially when it's buffed out. It does look really dark. I get that. It looks really dark. But honestly, if I take a big fluffy brush in there and then just bronze my whole face, it looks really, really nice, and it's definitely not as dark as it appears here. But I do like it. I just feel like I maybe didn't repress it very well. The only other powder bronzer that I ended up bringing in to this was this one, and this is the Hourglass Nude Bronze Light, and they're ambient lighting powders. It is the bronzer that's on my face today, and it looks like this, and it's quite a bit lighter than that one, right? It just looks really, really super natural, really quite glowy without being sparkly, and I just really love this bronzer. So it reignited my love for this bronzer. And then I also had quite a few cream bronzers that I brought in. This one from Rose Inc. is in the shade Kawaii. Now this one I purchased last like holiday season, I do believe it was. And I think that this one is maybe just a tad bit too orange for me. I'm not in love with it. Every time I wore it, I felt like I looked a little bit like an Oompa Loompa. I mean, I'm gonna hang on to it and give myself a little bit more go time with it. I loved the formula of it, and if I could get a different shade of it, I would consider purchasing a different shade. If a family member came in and was like, ooh, I love the look of that bronzer, and that looks like my perfect shade, I'd be like, take it. Have it. This one I actually brought in as a contour, and I'm glad I did because it was a perfect like anti-orange to go with like bronzers like this one here. This is the Fenty Matchstick in the shade Amber. I mean, you guys can see it's perfect anti-orange to go with when I mix them together. This is kind of the color that I get here. And I feel like it was pretty perfect to help that orange not look so orange. So I also used it just regularly as just the hollows of my cheeks like contour shade. I love this matchstick. It's so old in my collection, but I can't see letting it go because it's so pretty on my skin and on my complexion. That's the original Amber, not the new one that she has as well. This one is a product that I got in gratis. This is the Stila Blush and Bronze Hydra Blur Cheek Duo. Now, I don't know anything about blurring. I don't think that it did a great job of blurring, but I also think that this one is too orange for me. This one is quite a bit more orange than even the Rose Inc one. However, I really love the blush on the other side of this, and blending that one out, it looks a little bit more appealing than the Rose Inc one. So I love the blush on the other side, so I will be keeping that. Now this one, I absolutely love. This is the Rare Beauty bronzer stick in the shade Bright Side, I do believe. It is a little bit more of a contoury shade for me, but it is such a beautiful like quasi contour bronzer. I mean, look, that is just, it's pure perfection for my skin tone. Even though when I first put it on, I was like, oh my goodness, that is so gray. But then when I blended it out, it got warm, but not so warm that it looked awful. You can see it has a little bit of like almost a yellowness to it. And I have found that some of my more yellow bronzers actually look really, really good on my skin. Now the orange ones, not so much, but the yellow ones actually look really good on my skin. So I think it's got the perfect amount of peachiness and perfect amount of yellow and perfect amount of gray to it, that it was a really pretty perfect bronzer. This is the One Size Made for Shade Bronze and Sculpt Trio. And honestly, this wasn't my favorite. I feel like this just wasn't my favorite. I didn't love working with it. I felt like it didn't really buff out very, very well. The blending of it was a problem. I did like to mix these two shades here for a bronzer and this one for a contour. I think the shades were perfect. I do feel like I had a lot of problems trying to really buff it out on my skin and make it look normal and not dirty, right? So from within or on my skin naturally, and not just me trying to put bronzer on my face. I feel like it was maybe just slightly too pigmented for a powder, and picking the precise brush to use with it was also hard because the pans are actually, they're big enough for like a little brush like this, but for my bronzer brush, it was a completely different story. My bronzer brush wanted to go all over the place in it. It's not one that I hated, but it is one that I I could see me not picking up, just being the first thing that I pick up. And this one could be about like just color story. Maybe I got the wrong trio. This is the medium trio. I kind of swing light medium, so maybe it's just about the trio. Another palette, face palette that I brought into this was the Smashbox Halo Sculpt and Glow palette. It did have a bronzer, 2 blushes, and a highlight in it, and I really enjoyed the bronzer. I really enjoyed the highlight. I didn't enjoy the blushes. I just felt like I had to go in really heavy in these blushes to get them to show up with any kind of pigmentation on my skin. I mean, that is the peach with one swatch, and this is the peach with 2. So you can see that the more you build them up, the better they are. But I felt like I really had to go ham in there for those 2 to show up on my skin. Now, the highlight is the Rose Quartz highlight from the Becca like formulation, and it is truly a beautiful highlight. And the bronzer, while super hard pressed, I feel like is a perfect bronze for my skin. Now, this bronzer shade is called Designer, and it's actually a contour powder, but I feel like it's a little bit too rosy to be a contour powder on my skin. It was a really beautiful bronzer, so I did use that quite a bit for the bronze and for the highlight. Not so much for the blushes. After like the second or third time I used the blushes, I was like, these blushes, I have better ones in my collection, and that's just really what it comes down to. The Natasha Denona Berry Pop Cheek Trio has blushes and highlighters. This is a blush. This is kind of a blush highlighter hybrid, and this is a highlighter. This is a cream blush, and it is crazy sauce, but like it looks scary, but if you go like really light-handed in that, it does buff out and blend out really well. And then the one in the center is a Tinted Glow cream base. I really felt like this was more of like a topper on top of like this blush, and to utilize with this highlighter kind of on top of that. Because the highlight is a powder, so it helped to tame down this one from the balminess that it leaves behind. That one never really dries down into a powder, whereas the cream blush kind of feels like a powder from the minute that you touch it. So I really do feel like this one, the blush, buffs out really well, leaves a really great blush on your cheeks. The highlighter is beautiful and kind of see me from the moon highlight. This center one though, I mean, I could do without the center one. I do feel like at the end of the day, it is a beautiful like blush topper, but it is really balmy and doesn't really dry down. So, and I think I said the same thing about that middle kind of glowy base in the last like face trio that she had, that I bought the My Dream collection face trio. She has that like balmy base thing in the center as well, and I didn't really get along with that one either. I do think that the blush and the highlight in this is beautiful. I think that the colors are beautiful. I just don't love that center, like the texture of that center one. I also brought in 3 highlighters. The Rare Beauty Mesmerize Silky Touch highlighter, right? This is the pink of the gold version that I have. I love this highlight. It is so beautiful, sinks into the skin, looks just like it's part of your skin. Then I have this Natasha Denona one that is the Pastel Pixie Glow highlight that everybody was up in arms about when it first came out, because the pictures made it look, and honestly it looks like it's multi-dimensional, but truly it's just a gold that is like crazy stark gold highlight. It is beautiful on my tan skin. I'm not sure how it will look on my non-tan skin, but it is a lot more beaming than I go these days. I mean, even the pink one is far less beaming than that one is. And then I have this Pat McGrath one. This is the Pat McGrath Skin Finish Divine Glow Highlighter in Lunar Allure. And I'm going to be very careful with it because you guys can see up here, it fell out of the compact at some point. So I need to like store it in a place where it can store very carefully, because otherwise it's going to like totally break. But this one is white. So I had a kind of pink, a gold, and then a white. All See Me From the Moon highlighters, and that's just, I am wearing highlighter today, but I forget to wear it a lot these days because it's just not something that I think about. And I have so many highlighters in my collection. I enjoyed every single one of these. I am a little bit bummed that this one fell out of its packaging. I am excited that it fell out in a way that it didn't fall to the floor and crumble everywhere, because this is not the easiest component to open. So I open it very slowly, and when I opened it, I noticed product was kind of ajar in here, and I was like, oh, what is going on? What is that? I didn't know this came with a puff, and as it turned out, it was the product. It doesn't seem to be falling out right now, and I do have it turned like upside down. I'm scared for this guy's future in my collection because of how fragile this is. I'm gonna see if I can find a place to like set it in my collection flat, because I do think that it could potentially be a problem. We will see, we will see. I loved all three of those highlighters. I also brought in one liquid highlighter, and that was new to me. Also, this is the Rare Beauty Enlighten highlighter, and this one, what I loved about it is that it is white, but if I put it onto my skin and then went over it with my sponge and then just kind of dabbed it into the places that I wanted it to be on my face skin, it could look very lit from within in full force, and that is it buffed out. It just looks, it's just pretty. I don't think that we need this much liquid highlight, if I'm honest with you. And I do have a couple of her liquid blushes that come in the same like kind of component. And the mini, I think, is the perfect amount of product for all of the liquid products that we have, like from a highlight or blush perspective. So for blushes, I did bring in a bunch of blushes. All of them that I brought into this were new to me, that I had not used before. These are the Polite Society blush sticks. I did have two that I brought in. One is in the shade Sydney, and it is kind of like a mauve-y color. And the other one is in the shade Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is like that blue-based pink that is so popular. This blue-based pink is maybe too blue-based pink for me on my skin, but I really like the formula. I think that it lasts, you know, incredibly long on the skin, and I didn't have any problems with it. It is a cream stick formula that does dry down. It's not got a balminess to it that sticks around. I liked it a lot. Another liquid one that I brought in was the Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush Wand in the shade Pillow Talk Dream Pop, which I don't understand because this is straight up red, and Pillow Talk is usually a pink color for the brand, but you guys can see it is straight up red. So this is the shade before buffing it out, and even when you buff it out, it still is very red. And not that I'm opposed to a red blush, but this is really hard to buff into the skin in a timely way. It still leaves behind quite a stripe of like just really red blush. Maybe not my favorite, but I mean, it's beautiful. I just think it's a time and a place kind of blush, and not like a blush that I think I'm going to be pulling for all the time. It's a blush that I could see taking me forever in my collection to use up because of the straight up color of it. Now, this was a product that I received in gratis, so it was like not a product that I chose to have for myself. This, I think, would be a really beautiful blush on a deeper skin tone than mine, but I just think that that could come across very clownish at the end of the day. I also have this one, which is the Glossier Puff, or Glossier Cloud Paint in the shade Puff. And I don't know if you guys can see, but this is quite a bit empty. As a matter of fact, I'll probably put it into my project pan at some point just to finish it off. I like this, obviously. I just also feel like it takes a lot to get any kind of like real life pigmentation out of it. And I think that that's why it looks nearly empty right now, is because as I was blending it out on my skin, I felt like it disappeared just quite a bit faster than most other like liquid blushes that I have in my collection. I would also say that this was part of a sample set that you could get at Christmas time, and I just don't think that there's very much in these products. So that is also part of the reason why it's almost gone, is I used it quite a bit over the last several weeks, and I also felt like I needed to use a lot of it because it didn't like last on my skin through everything else that I was applying to my face. Once I put powder on my face, it quite often disappeared, so I would need to put more over the top of that powder in order for it to show up. And I really like the color because it was beautiful for kind of like a no makeup look, because it was very, very subtle. But in the subtle moments of it, it absolutely looked like I wasn't wearing anything. So I do think that maybe a different shade and I would like it better. But I also think I have better cream formulas in my collection that I don't need the glossy cloud paint. Even though I like it a lot, I just feel like it's just not the formula for me. Maybe I have two of the Rare Beauty blushes. I have Encourage and I have a little mini in Hope. Hope was one that I picked up in a gift set for the holiday season, or a mini for the holiday season, before they were really actually offering minis. Hope was out during the holiday season for minis. Enjoyed working with this one a lot more, and I felt like this one stayed a lot better than the Glossier one. The Encourage shade is mauve, and it is deep, and it looks very pretty on my skin tone. It almost looks like a bruise though, so I have to be very, very careful with it. But all of these dry down so that they don't really move. Now that is a double-edged sword. In my humble opinion, it's a double-edged sword because as you're buffing them out, they dry down rather quickly in those spots where you're not really still trying to work with them, right? But if they're not 100% where you want them to be, they're just gonna stay in that spot where you don't want them to be. So you need to work, I think, with liquids and creams a little bit more quickly than you would with a powder. And I think that's why I choose powder over and over again. This one is the lip and cheek color from Rose Inc. in the shade Heliotrope, and it is cream. It's a little bit different of a cream though than the other creams that we have been talking about, because it is like a thick cream, right? And I think that this is the one that I was using versus the Glossier, because even though it is a little bit deeper, I think that their tones resemble each other quite a bit, and I liked this a lot more than I liked the Glossier formula. I felt like it was easier to work with, and I felt like I wasn't having to put this on and use so much of it to have it be apparent. This one I also pulled in. This is the Good Apple Blush Balm Duo in Nymph's Grove, which includes Cryptic Apple and Mythical Apple. So Cryptic Apple, Mythical Apple. I do think that these are pretty on my lips. I did not like them on my face, and I picked them up because I was in a store. I mean, look. Those are so pretty. I was in a store and my GM was bouncing around the store, and she's like, Donna, you have to purchase these and then wear them and then send me a picture of you wearing them. I think that they were beautiful, and in a pinch they would be a great like blush for a Halloween look, or maybe like a cosplay, or maybe like a monochromatic look. I think that they're beautiful, but they're not for my skin tone. Let's be 100% honest. So I did like them a lot as lip colors, but as a blush, like I would have to be in a certain kind of inspired place to be using these as a blush. Now, the formula, I'm not 100% sure that I love. What I do love about the formula is it stays moist enough that you can manipulate them for quite some time, unlike some of these. But from the like lip perspective, wearing them on your lips, it dries down almost too much for your lips, even though it stays moist enough that you can manipulate them quite a bit on your cheeks. I don't think it stays moist enough for lip wear. Am I sad I have it? No. I enjoyed playing with it. It was a lot of fun. So I did bring in this one, which is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Cheek to Chic in Intense. And this is what it looks like. And I only used this twice, but mostly because I just think that it's maybe the wrong time of year for me for this guy, because this is kind of like a brownie shade to it, and I would prefer wearing this in like the winter. I wore way too bright of look for like this blush specifically, but it was a really nice blush. This is the Natasha Denona My Mini Dream Glow blush. And I have to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of how this blush is comprised, how it has the two blush shades and then the highlight shade. There is kind of like the Neapolitan of it all, the highlight, the light blush, the dark blush. When you mix them all together, it kind of ruins the whole thing, but that is it right there. And it is a really pretty pinky glowy blush. However, I don't like doing that because then look at your palette. I hate that. I hated using this. So I would either stick my brush in just this one side or use like a small brush to hit the highlighter. I think it's beautiful with these two mixed together and then the highlighter over the top of it. I think it is beautiful. I would love for this to be 3 separate products or in a much bigger compact than this, because you literally have to use an eyeshadow brush to get into the single colors in and of themselves or mix them all together. And I don't like mixing them all together. So I did love it as a standalone product times 3. I didn't love it all together. This is the Dior Rosy Glow in Berry. I do think that, again, this is probably more of a fall tone blush for me. I just brought it in wrong time of year. But this is also the same color blush as like this blush is and like this blush to some extent, and could look very much like a bruise on me. I have this habit of picking the wrong shades of blushes for myself because I just really love the color. And on a deeper skin tone, I do think that this would be a beautiful blush, and I might find a deeper skin tone friend to give it to at the end of the day. But for now, I would love to try it during the fall time, see how I like it on myself during the fall, and then go from there. But I love those Dior blushes, so maybe I just need to grab a different shade. I mean, obviously, I need to grab a different shade. That's just, purple is just not the color of blush I should be purchasing. And then I have this one, which was probably my most anticipated blush. This is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Blush, shade 61. It looks like this, very reminiscent. I love these dark tones for winter. I need to pull this back out in the winter time. But one thing that I want to make note of is that, number one, how pigmented that is, but also number two, how just luminous this is. It just brings life to my face, and it is so pretty, so blendable. And I love the component, how it's just kind of like off kiltered and pretty. I love the embossing in the pan. It's just luxurious. It feels luxurious, and I loved that blush. So the next thing I have is my eye stuff, and I didn't use a lot of these, so some of these are going to stay. These 3 I did use. So this one is the About Face Fractal Eye Paint in the shade Fracture. And this is actually what is on the center of my eyes today. I really like it. It is really beautiful and does a lot to like enhance just a normal everyday brown eye look. So I am actually shocked at how much I like that. This one is the Lancome Tintadol Eye Blusher is what it is called. And I feel like this was the perfect product to put onto my eye and then just kind of buff it out with a brush. And it became a really pretty perfect like one shadow eye look. And it didn't crease or anything. This is not my favorite. This is from Ray-Ban. I would say that overall, the brand just kind of disappointed me overall. This is a Ray-Ban Color Shot, which is their eye shadow, cream eyeshadows. And while this is a beautiful color, it created so much nasty creasiness. I could not with it. It was so pretty and is pretty. I'm just gonna have to figure out a way to wear it on my lid space where it is like centered so that there's not any creasiness that can happen to it. But my God, look at the color of that. It is so pretty. But it just caused so many, I mean, look, when I do that with my hand, you can see every bit of texture on my hand. So it only works when you're completely taut, right? And for that purpose, I did not love it on my eyes. It made me look probably, I don't know, 50 years older. And I also used this. I've used this 100,000 times. Y'all should know by this point that this is one of my favorite things in life. This is the Jumbo Eye Pencil in the shade Milk, and I use this often as a eye primer. It is just, it's white. I did use this, the Space Case single eyeshadow in the shade Intense Stargasm, and it was a little bit drier than I remember it being, but super pretty and impactful. So I am going to pull this out because I did use it. I used this. This is one of my new favorite eyeliners. This is such a beautiful glitter eyeliner. I would use it in my inner corner out and just create a little bit of interest and graphic liner. I would use it on my inner corner and kind of buff it into the eye look, whatever eye look I had going on. I mean, how pretty is this, and what a beautiful just like glitteriness it's got to it. I loved this so much. That one I purchased, but I have another one in my collection that I got at FLC, so I'm excited to bring that in. All of the eyeshadow sticks will stay in here. I have one glitter eyeshadow and then 3 single eyeshadows will stay in here, but the rest of this is getting put back into my collection after I pull new products, except for this one item that we are decluttering this time, which I have to say I'm pretty happy about. I forgot to show you this blush shade that was on the other side of this stylus stick. You guys are probably like, what about that blush shade? This is in the shade Grapefruit, and it reminded me also of that Glossier Plush Paint, except for I really loved the formulation of it a lot more. So there's that again. With that said, let's go pick some new items. These are foundations. I figured we'd start here. I definitely want to use this one because it's new. I cut my thumb open last night. That was super fun, but this is the Win Beauty product. I also want to pull this one in, which is the new Natasha Denona powder one. I'm thinking about doing a full face of Natasha Denona, so I'm gonna pull that one in. I've got several new ones here. I've got this one by Polite Society is new to me. This one by About Face is also new. That one right there is also new. Here's the thing, I really don't love IT Cosmetics foundations for the most part, and this one is a matte, so I might give this to my sister. So I'm gonna pull in this one by Polite Society, and I am also going to pull in this one by About Face. I don't pull in eyeliners or brow products because I just use those willy-nilly, and the rest of this is my like turn and burn and my project pan. So from a concealer and powder and corrector perspective, I do want to bring in this concealer because it is new to me. It is the Charlotte Tilbury one. I also want to bring in the Glossier Stretch Concealer and the Fenty one just to see if I like it better this second time around. From a powder perspective, I'm going to bring in this one from Benefit. It is new. I got it from my RAM, so I'm going to bring in that one. From a corrector standpoint, maybe I'll pull in this one. I think the last time I used this, I hated how it sat on my skin. So this one is the Becca one that, you know, Smashbox kept making after they purchased Becca. I'm going to bring this one in and see if I like it any better this time around. From a pressed powder perspective, I'm going to bring in this one from Kosas. For eye primers, I'm going to bring in the ABH one, get some more use out of that. And from a face primer perspective, I think I am going to bring in actually the Smashbox Illuminate, because I've been feeling like my skin is really kind of sallow lately. I'm also going to bring in the Tarte Timeless because I've been noticing my face is breaking out a lot lately. To be honest, I'm not washing my face as well as I should be recently. I am also going to bring in one of these new ones from BioBell that I got in gratis from FLC. I'm going to bring in this one that is just the Perfecting Drops. It's got color correcting complex in it. It's also got SPF in it, so I need to use all of these prior to that point. So we'll bring in this one, and I think that's it for primers. Okay, you guys know that when it comes to this stuff, I always bring in my newness. So this whole container of highlighters is going to come in because it is all new. So I've got my Doolala from Benefit. I have got Stila Heaven's Hue Hydroluminator. I'm actually not going to bring this one in because I do have my mini of this in my project pan right now. I have this already open in my collection, so I'm just going to shove that in there. That was gratis. And then these four are new. I've got the Fenty Beauty Demi Glow in the shade, what is that, Too Much. I've got Natasha Denona Hygiene, and I am in the shade Light. Then I've got the ABH Glow Seeker in Sun Idol. And then I've got the Fenty Diamond Bomb in Rose Rave. So those are highlighters that I'm bringing in. That's a lot. And something happened and I went crazy with highlights. All right, so this is my blush and bronzer drawer. These and those are all new, so that is what I'm bringing in today. I will likely, again, not bring in this because I do have the mini of it in my project pan right now. This is the Charlotte Tilbury one in Pink Gasm, so I'll just lay this in here. I have two new bronzers. So one's a cream and one is not a cream. So I'll bring in those two. And then the rest of this is blush. So I have two of the AF94 blushes. I have Super Freak and Pardon Me. Looks like two very different colors. I have two of the nude sticks. One in Picante, which is this orange one. And this one is in Juicy Melons. And then this is also nude sticks, and this is a sunscreen blush tint. I have this cream blush also. This is the Cosmetics Sun Blush in Sunlit. And then I have these two NYX Buttermelt blushes. Had Butter is the orange one, and then this one is For the Butter. Two very different blushes. I have this one from RMS Beauty. This is Pomegranate Fizz. These blushes have been on my list for ever. They just look so pretty. And then I have two of the Fenty Hot Cheeks blushes, one in Baked Peach and one in Juicy Peach. And then I have this, which is the Live Tinted Hue Balm. This is supposed to be a bronzer / blush, so we'll get some use out of that. From a single eyeshadow perspective, I just took all the newness out of their boxes just last night because I wanted to get all this the way it needed to be as I was taking pictures of stuff for my inventory, which you guys will see hopefully very soon, my like mid-year check-in. But I do know that there's a lot of newness over here, and there is some newness in here. There's a couple of new color pops here, and all these melt ones are new. I mean, I can't bring in every single one of them, though. I do think that these ones interest me probably the most. These look just amazing. These are about face, like multi-chromes. And then these two as well, which are Juvia's Place multi-chromes. And then I also want to bring in all three of these, which are the melt glitter eye gel things. So I have this one, which is Making Christmas. This one, which is Zero, which is kind of just more of a topper. And then this one, which is called Wisteria. I'm going to bring in these LOC ones because they are on my plan to cam for the year, and I haven't even touched them. So I just realized I pulled the wrong like liquid shadow in. I meant to pull the other Juvia's Place one in. So this is the other Juvia's Place one. And I just remembered also that I did buy a black NYX jumbo pencil that I'm going to pull in to put underneath some of these multi-chromes. Lips, I kind of moved stuff around when I did inventory. This is now my lip liners. I mean, I always feel like I'm pulling in the same lip liners, but it is what it is. This one I don't think I've pulled in, so I'll pull in this one. This one is in Little One. I'm going to pull in this one, which is in Oh Snap. I've pulled this one in 100,000 times. I'll pull in this one. I don't think I've pulled this one in ever either. This one is called Lumiere. I also think I'm going to pull in my Wayne Goss pencil because I haven't used that in forever. Then from a lipstick perspective, I have a ton of newness because gratis, but specifically, like, I like to pull in whatever for my lips. I think I'm going to pull in this Half Caked. Definitely going to pull in this Benefit one. And then there is another Benefit one somewhere. Maybe it's in here. It's not. Yes, it is. It's right here. So I'm going to pull in both these Benefit ones. One's glossy. One's more not glossy. I'm going to pull in this Half Caked as a liquid lipstick. I think I'm going to pull in this one from Mellow. It's also some matte liquid lip paint, so also a liquid lipstick. I think I'll also bring these three Clinique Chubby Sticks in because I think they've been in my collection for years, and I think I maybe have used each one maybe once. Now that doesn't mean that I'm not going to pull in other lip products or other like glosses specifically, but these are the ones I'm going to focus in on. But we have all of my lip products, all of my blushes and bronzers, my highlights, my complexion products, some eye products. And now we get to put it into the drawer. I don't have the right camera with me so that you guys can hear the clack, clack, clack. So I am just going to put it into the drawer and then bring you guys back. Okay, why didn't you guys remind me that I had so many eye products still left over in here? We were creating this everyday makeup drawer. So there's a lot in the eye product category. With that said, I'm going to make sure that it is a focus for me to use all the things, but we have all of my eye products in here, including the ones that we left over. We have blushes and highlights in here. We have cream products, bronzers, and powder bronzers here. I have my powders here, my loose and my pressed. I have all my complexion here, my two face primers here, and all my lip stuff here. And this is what we are going to be working with over the next several weeks. This will carry us into probably the end of September. I'll redo it for fall time. I love doing these because I always get to at least touch all the newness in my collection. So who knows about what's going to happen with 4 freaking foundations in here, but plus the 3 that I have in my project pan. So we'll see. But this is what we're dealing with for the next several weeks, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did and you want to see more, please don't forget to subscribe before you go. But with that said, I hope that you all are doing well, that you all are healthy, safe, getting along as best as you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life, literally. And until next time, bye, friends.